What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Another week, another video here at Homestead Studios. And this week's video is going to be a little bit different, but kind of the same. Instead of just talking kitchen design and showing you guys examples, we're going to dive right in and walk through one particular design. Alrighty, so last week Mark Tobin and myself went live over on his channel to tackle the IKEA Kitchen Design Challenge. Now if you missed that video, I'll throw a link down in the description below. It is definitely worth the watch. And today what I want to do is dive a little bit more into my particular kitchen layout and my particular design for that challenge. So today's video is definitely going to be on the longer end of the spectrum, but I've had a few requests for this particular style of video. If you guys enjoy it and want to see more of them, let me know down in the comments below. Alright, so let's start getting this kitchen put together. So as I mentioned, Mark and I are doing a bit of an IKEA design challenge, if you will. So all cabinetry that is going to be added into this kitchen will be available from IKEA. And that goes for the standard cabinet box sizes. So now when it comes to any kitchen design, I like to start with my sink placement, and this becomes even more so important if I am putting it on an exterior wall underneath a window. This way I can center that cabinet and then basically build outwards from there. So I haven't put any global options in terms of what this cabinetry is going to look like in the end together yet, so I'm just using the standard Pro Kitchen catalog at this point. So we'll center it up with the window, and now I have a pretty good idea on spacing on either side. So I know with a 53-inch corner gap here, I'm probably going to put in my standard blind corner cabinet. It is my preferred choice when it comes to corners. I like the accessibility that those Lazy Susans offer over the bifold style door Lazy Susan, where you are minimized in terms of the opening to access items. So that leaves me with a 6-inch gap here. Now I know I can put in one of my hidden IKEA doors, if you will, where I swap out a drawer front, flip it vertically, and turn it into a base cabinet. So to simulate that in the design here, I typically just use a standard cabinet size and then adjust it accordingly. Now I still have a 1-inch gap, so in the case of IKEA kitchens like this, typically I'll take my corner cabinet and just drag it out of the corner by an inch. You'll never ever see that, and it'll be hidden by a cover panel here anyways, and that loss of an inch stops me from having to stick any extra filler panels in here. So we're not going to do any hidden appliances. We're going to just let's use just standard appliances for the design. No need to go crazy fancy here. But I am going to keep the same repeating pattern here of double deep drawers on the exterior side of this kitchen. Now I am going to take advantage of this long wall I have here and put a larger range in. I'm going to throw a 36-inch gas cook setup in this design because it's for no one in particular, and if it were my kitchen, that's what I would throw in with this much space. So we're not going to worry about the wall cabinetry for now. That's pretty much got a good base on my outer wall here. We're going to move over to the second wall, and we're going to start pulling this together. Now I know at a minimum here I need a fridge and some sort of pantry unit. So we're going to start off with the pantry next to this corner over in this side. And before we put that in, I also know we're going to need a bit of a filler panel just to push it off the wall slightly. The nice thing about including filler panels in corners like this as well is it lets you describe the filler panel between your pantry cabinet and the wall, just in case nothing's perfectly straight or square. This gives you a nice seamless, tight, flush fit every time. So let's just see how much room we have. Let's stick a 36-inch fridge in here just to get a rough idea of what we're dealing with size-wise. So I'm always thinking about layout and my working area when I'm laying kitchens out like this, and I know I'm going to be sticking an island in here. So I don't want to shove the kitchen, or I don't want to shove the fridge too far off to the side here, because essentially what that'll mean is if I put an island in here now, you're going to constantly be having to go around this island every time you want to go use it. So we're going to move this as far as it makes sense to move into the middle section of this wall. And what's that? That's looking like a 36-inch pantry setup. Should be pretty good. And then we can do basically 36-inch bank of drawers, 36-inch fridge, 36-inch pantry, give or take a few inches here, we'll see. Now this filler panel, of course, is going to go slightly down in size because it is not going to be as thick. And we'll have our fridge cap, and now we have a perfect room for a 20-inch fridge cabinet. So again, we're working with IKEA, so we got to make sure we make our adjustments. And then finally, one more filler panel. So that leaves us with 45 inches. A bit of an awkward setup here, admittedly. The key is really thinking about what exactly you're going to be sticking inside these cabinets. What makes the most logical sense in this area? So, we're actually going to come back to this. We're going to leave that as is for right now, and we're going to start working on our island layout. So first things first, let's get just a countertop line in here. Or a construction line, I should say, and we're going to start laying out our cabinetry here. Now the first thing I want is an oil and spice setup for my range. So it'll be a pull-out cabinet. And then on the back side of my island, I want to do nothing but 3 drawer setups. So whereas I did 2 drawer on all the outside, I'm going to do 3 drawers on the inside. We'll try and keep them somewhat symmetrical. I think all 30-inch setups. Let's see how that looks for spacing. Keeping in mind, I want to stick one more base cabinet over here. And I want it to mimic our 12-inch if we can. You know what? We'll set this up as a 12-inch base cabinet. We'll swap this guy out and we'll stick a 36 in the middle. And then we'll see how we're doing for spacing. We might have to narrow this up a little bit. So because I have my range on the one side and a fridge on the other, I'm going to aim for around that 42-inch mark in both cases for spacing. Somewhere right about there. I actually like that. I like that it doesn't quite end all the way even with the kitchen. It stays contained within the L shape of our kitchen. So on the back side of the island, I'm going to add some extra storage because we have the room in this kitchen. And I'm just going to use narrow depth standard cabinets. And they can almost act like more pantry storage, or storage you don't need to access all the time. Alright, so let's just take a little peek at how this is coming together. You'll notice as I go through the design process, I flip back and forth between my 3D and my 2D, my 3D renderings and my 2D elevations, just to get a better idea of how the layout is going. I'm still not quite sure what I want to do with this space over here. But I do like that island size in relation to the kitchen. I don't think it's overly big, and I think it gives lots of room. And if you were to cook in this space, you're not going to have to constantly run around it. Everything is more or less accessible on the one side. Alright, time to tackle this space once and for all, and at least get something in there for now. Now, I like the fact that this side of the kitchen over here, let me zoom this in a little, our drawers are all more or less concentrated in this area. And we have a door front here, and I think I'm going to try and tie that together, especially because we have doors here as well, and put door fronts, just standard cabinet door fronts here. Now, IKEA offers a 21-inch door front cabinet that comes with 3 internal drawers. So I think we're going to set that up that it looks like a standard cabinet with a door. However, it will have interior drawers. And then this will give us just a little bit bigger of a filler panel here, which is never a bad thing, especially when you have cabinet doors like these, which will open on each other. Remember, as you're going about designs, you always want to be thinking about how those cabinet doors are going to open and how they're going to interact with the space around them. Now these 24-inch cabinets, they'll be perfect for pots and pans, and I'll also stick a hidden drawer on the inside. And that'll be good for, on one hand, we could have all of our utensils for our cooktop, and on the other, it can just be complete spice organization. So one of the things you'll notice as I go through these designs, or as I go through planning the layout and where cabinets are going to sit, I'm really trying to think about what makes the most sense. So what is going to be stored in these cabinets in each particular area. Alright, so it's time to start filling in some wall cabinetry, and I think because of the amount of storage I have in the island here, I'm only going to put up one set or one bank of wall cabinets to finish off this wall completely. But you know, as I'm thinking about it, one important thing to remember with a lot of designs is our walls, especially in older houses, aren't always perfectly flat. So we're actually going to shrink these down. I know I said earlier I could build kicks higher, but we're going to shrink them down to a standard height, 90-inch cabinet on a 4.5-inch kick. Same thing, we'll shrink our filler panels down. And the reason for that is this allows me to put a finish up against the wall to make sure that they all sit nice and tight and clean against the ceiling. So in here we're going to stick some standard cabinets. Of course we got to switch them to what IKEA actually offers. Be interesting to talk to IKEA one time why they make their wall cabinets 15 inches deep and not 12. I know presumably it's to match their base cabinets at 15 inches deep as well, but why didn't they just make their base cabinets 12 inches deep? Be curious to know the answer to that. And then we're going to have a 3-inch gap or so, 3 3/4-inch gap in there, which is no problem. Gives lots of room for the handle when it swings open so it's not hitting our other wall. Alright, so now to finish off that ceiling area, while I'm thinking about it, we're going to go into moldings right now. We're going to enable a top molding. And I want something in this transitional, this not decorative classic crown. I want something a little bit more modern. You know what, I like that. That's nice and subtle. It doesn't scream crown molding. It's just a nice clean way to finish off the ceiling. And it sticks in that transitional design element that I'm really aiming for with this overall kitchen design. Alright, we might as well start putting our global options together and what exactly our doors are going to look like. Now, I'm going with my tried and true cathedral style, shaker style palette panels. I really like the look of them from IKEA. I think they are a door front that will not fade over time in terms of popularity. Alright, let's take a look and see how that looks now. That's really black. So I know I already want to, I have a few ideas. I know I want to definitely lighten this up, but because of the room we're working in, nice big open space here, I don't mind going really bold on the kitchen cabinets. I don't think it's going to close off the space in any way like it might with a smaller room. And admittedly, I like the color black. I really like adding it into design. It is not the easiest color, I will admit. It requires a little bit more maintenance. Alright, so time to move on to our countertops. So let's get these placed in. At all. Now, like I said, I wanted to lighten this up, so we're going to make sure that these countertops we pick, I already know which one I have in mind. Alright, so the first thing we've done here is we've added in a waterfall edge on that side, and now we're going to pair that up and continue that onto the island. But before I do that, I want to add an overhang to my island for some seating. Doesn't that look good, the black and the white? Whew, I'm loving it. Alright, so I just took a peek at my 3D rendering, and I really don't like how big this island is, so we are going to shrink it up. It's just got way too big of an overhang. I think somewhere around that 15-inch mark is going to make a lot more sense. Alright, time to tackle this big area above the range. Now, in a past video I said range hoods typically have to go one of two ways. Either they have to blend into the design and just really not be that noticeable, or they need to be bold sort of in your face and right there for everyone to see, almost like a giant focal point up on the wall. And to start with, I'm going to lay it out from that standpoint. I'm going to make a giant in your face focal point on the back of this kitchen wall. Alright, let's see how this looks with the countertops and the range hood in place. Let's see if this range hood, if my ability to actually match the brass somewhat worked out. Oh, it's not too bad. It's a little patchy looking, but we can go in and edit that. I'm not sure how I feel about this kitchen right now. And dead honest, it's a little too cold and sterile for me. Not quite my cup of tea. That range hood has to go. This is a pretty good gap, 32 inches. We're probably 32 inches to the range, so I don't want to go too much bigger than just a range hood here. So it does need to stand out in some aspect. The question is how? So looking at the design right now, what I find it's lacking is some warmth, some hominess, something that is inviting and something that gives it some personality. It's rather sterile looking, like this could be anybody's kitchen at this point in time. I already like it better without the big brass range hood. That was a no-go right off the bat. What does it look like if we stick just a standard style range hood in here? Just a black one though, not stainless steel. I think stainless steel is just gonna stand out kind of funny on the wall. Okay, I don't mind that, but it still looks very alone. I'll tell you, right now is about the time when I'm already thinking about changing the layout of this area. This area looks very blank and plain right now. Alright, so that's the basic premise of laying out a kitchen, cabinetry placement, and how to create just a functional space to work in. But that's really only half the battle. Now we need to go back into the space and make it beautiful and enter what I would more call the design side of planning out a kitchen. Now I'm not going to walk through every little design change I made because we could be here for hours, because ultimately you'll pick a certain finish, say a backsplash tile, and put it in, look at the 3D view, and just you're not going to be happy with it. Or as you saw, I picked multiple range hoods and still just wasn't happy with how they looked. So I'm going to pull up the final 3D rendering of everything, show you guys the final space, and walk through it from that particular perspective. So you'll probably notice a few changes right off the bat with the design, and one of the most notable changes comes in the kitchen island cabinetry. So one of the things I talked about earlier on was not really having any warmth or comfort or personality in the space, and it just being rather kind of sterile and stark. So one of the best ways to add warmth to any design is through some natural wood tones. Now, I played around with some open shelving and I didn't really like the idea of it, and I didn't really like where it sat in this kitchen anyway whatsoever. So I opted to swap out the cabinetry on the kitchen island to a more of a walnut natural tone. Now, I should take a minute to note here that technically I cheated a little in the design challenge because this style of door is not, or this style of door I should say, is not available through IKEA, so you would have to go to those third-party manufacturers, whether it's Kitch or Allstyle or Semihandmade or Kokeena. There's a lot of different options out there. But it still uses all of the basic IKEA guts, so the cabinet boxes, all the internal hardware, everything like that. All you need to do then is just purchase those aftermarket doors. But it really warms up the space, and I really like the visual dynamic difference with the black exterior cabinetry and the wood island cabinetry. It just gives it that visual difference between the two and makes the island a bit of a focal point to the kitchen, set on this really sleek and modern looking backdrop of the black cabinetry with the white backsplash. So we might as well dive into that backsplash now. One of the things you'll notice with me over time and seeing my designs and seeing my renderings of kitchens, what I really like to do is keep the area around the kitchen sink and the kitchen window, if there is one behind the sink, rather open. I like to keep this as just an open, airy place in the kitchen because we spend a lot of time there, and I don't like to feel constrained and constricted by cabinetry right next to me while I'm working. And that was really my main reasoning for not having any cabinetry on this back wall at all, is it just allows the range hood to be its own miniature focal point on the one side and all the area around the kitchen sink rather open. So with that, let's talk about the range hood. So I went through a couple different iterations as you saw earlier on, and I really wasn't happy with any of them. And I opted to do a range inset or a range insert in this, or a range hood insert in this case. So it would be just a standard cabinet box that would be built out, not a cabinet box, sorry, like a plywood box built out or something of the like framed out for this range insert or this hood insert. And then to get a little fancy, I wrapped it in my countertop material. I think this is a nice way to draw your eye towards the range without creating this range hood that is so loud that you don't really have a chance to see anything else in the kitchen. It's just, it screams this really like, I'm a range hood and look at me. This is just kind of a nice way to pull it in with the kitchen, but still allow it to be a bit of a focal point. And so it didn't feel like it was standing on its own. I opted to add some lighting on either side. I think this gives some visual balance to the kitchen. The cabinetry wall on the one side to this area around the range hood, it doesn't feel so stark and blank. But as you'll have noticed from many of my past videos, that I like to harp on lighting because I think it is really important in a kitchen. And over on this side, it would have been really difficult to incorporate any task lighting without having wall cabinets. And sconces are a great way to do this. So you'll have your standard lights on your range hood, and then a couple sconces on either side allow this entire work area to be lit up. So speaking of work lighting and task lighting, you'll notice two main types of lighting in the kitchen. I have my task lighting, which are these sconces. I have some pendants hanging over my island. I really like to include pendants over islands or peninsulas. I think they're a great way to add a little bit of personality and character, but they're also fantastic for providing task lighting across that surface without having these direct, harsh downlights from the ceiling. And then finally, I have under cabinet lighting over in the corner to make sure that that area is looked after as well. So really what you wind up with is this beautiful functional kitchen that has kind of checked off all the major points, or at least it would for me if this was my working space. I mean, we're all different. We all like what we like in our particular kitchens. So I'm interested to see is there anything you guys would have done differently? Let me know down in the comments below. Alright, so the design didn't quite stop there though. I opted to keep going over into the dining room because why not? We have the space over here. So I've spent a lot of time in more traditional style houses where you're working in dining rooms that aren't always totally closed off, but are typically separate from the kitchen in some way or another. And historically, those dining rooms would have been anchored by either a buffet or a hutch at the one end for your fancy china, your fancy teacups and saucers, maybe even your nice silverware. Now, I find a lot of open style houses sort of lose that aspect when it comes to their dining room. They just have this big area, they slap a dining table down in it, and they call it a day. Well, in this case, I opted to bring a little bit of that traditional design back by putting in a bar or like a drink bar or a coffee bar, really whatever you wanted to use it as. Over on the back wall here, there was a big open space. It was screaming for some sort of storage and functionality to the corner. So in this case, I just have some nice glass cabinets on either side of the bar top. I have a wine fridge or a beverage fridge in the bottom, and then just some deep drawers for storage. But again, these could be swapped out for really however you wanted to store, whatever you wanted to store in the area. And finally, to round it all out, I've got some horizontal cabinets up top that really frame everything together. And then the whole thing is wrapped in walnut panels that would match the island over here, to really pull the two together and tell you that it is a cohesive space and a cohesive design from the dining room through to the kitchen. And then I just threw a dining table in here to give you a bit of perspective in terms of how this layout of this main floor would work. And one of the reasons I chose to put the dining table this way is A, it lines up with the long windows that we have on the outside wall of the house, but also because I didn't want to disrupt the flow to these back patio doors in any way whatsoever. Well, there you have it. That is planning a kitchen from the basic layout to cabinetry placement and trying to create that functional space and then wrapping it all together with the design elements. Thanks a ton for watching this week's video, guys. If you're still sticking around now, let me know down in the comments below if you want to see more videos like this, more behind the scenes of the design, if you will. I'm happy to make them. Anything to help you guys in your own planning and kitchen planning endeavors. Again, thanks a ton for watching, and we'll see you guys next week. Whew! That was a long one. I'll tell you, right now is about the time when I'm already thinking about changing the layout of this area. This area looks very blank and plain right now.